Welcome aboard the Wandering Star, a 48-foot steel vessel capable of taking 12 passengers and 2 crew. With a permanent mooring in Fishguard's harbour, the Wandering Star is never more than an hour or so's cruise from some of the best dive sites in West Wales. Her spacious decks allow everyone time for chatting, relaxing, or enjoying the local wildlife. Diver entry on the Wandering Star is simple. Just step off the boat. Our first dive is the wreck of the steamship Vendome, which lies in 30 to 35 metres of water. The Vendome's propeller is still attached, although the rudder is missing. The Vendome's boiler still sits upright on the seabed, looming 2 to 3 metres off the bottom. And with lobsters, conger, edible crabs, and wrasse species aplenty, you'll always find something. Although most of the wreckage is less than 2 metres off the seabed, there's lots of opportunities for exploring. Our next dive is Anglas Point. This reef system, consisting of numerous parallel gullies, is teeming with life. There are many edible crabs and common spider crabs walking around the rocks, and in the gullies you'll find shrimp and squat lobster. Butterfish make their home between the rocks, while on their surface, spider crab march majestically through the algae. It's always a pleasure to find Britain's commonest shark on a dive. Its blunt dog-like head, big eyes and docile manner contrast with a distinctly shark-like shape. The dogfish on this dive were very happy posing for our camera. The grey seal is one of 2 species of seal resident in the British Isles, and Pembrokeshire has a 5,000-strong colony of these beautiful creatures. It's not uncommon to find grey seals basking on the rocks close to the shore, and if you're really lucky, you may even get a closer encounter underwater. Seals are inquisitive and often come close to divers just to find out what you are. Green Scar, Black Scar and Pie Gully all form islands off Solva. In the nooks and crannies between the rocks and the reefs you'll find spiny squat lobsters hiding in their crevices. Although the visibility on this dive wasn't that great, we were incredibly lucky to have seen this common octopus walking along the seabed. This species of octopus is remarkably common in the UK, although sightings like this are rare since they spend most of their time hiding in their dens. Also common in this area is the oddly named pog. Prawns often line the entrance hole to another species found in this area. This young conger eel tapped me on my shoulder while I was filming the prawn, as if it wanted to be in the action. You can still see the prawn in the lower right-hand side of the picture. HMS Whirlwind was a Second World War Royal Navy Hunter-class destroyer. Although she saw action at sea, it wasn't a war that caused her to sink. She sank in early November 1974. As a converted and then decommissioned Type 15 anti-submarine frigate, she was used as target practice by the Royal Navy. The bow section of the ship remains mostly intact, lying on the port side. You'll find the usual wreck life on the wreck of the HMS Whirlwind, including bib, lobster, congers and crabs. One of the highlights of this dive is undoubtedly the twin 40mm anti-aircraft guns, which now lie on the seabed facing the bow as a poignant reminder that this was once a serving vessel. The ship's main mast lies on the seabed. At the base of this mast is a large section of ship's superstructure with an invitingly open door. This wreck really needs to be dived more than once to fully appreciate it. But on a single dive, you can swim the entire 100-metre length and see all of the structures. The stern section of HMS Whirlwind has collapsed and now lies upside down on the seabed. The A-frames that supported the twin propellers are still in place on the underside of the stern. And between the two you can find the rudder, which now stands 3 metres proud of the deck. What's left of the wooden-hulled Calberga lies at 34 to 40 metres off Strumble Head. You'll find lots of wildlife down here. We found this crawfish, or spiny lobster, ambling along the seabed. Unlike their blue cousins, spiny lobsters only have small hook-like claws. All that now remains of the wreck of the Calberga are the largest of the wooden sections, with metal pins protruding like ribs. And on the flat shingle seabed, you'll find crab, lobster, species of flatfish, and of course, scallops. Probably the most famous shipwreck of Wales has to be the 450-ton, two-holed Dutch coaster, the Lucy. She rests upright and almost intact in 40 metres of water. The two holds are still filled with calcium carbide. Therefore, once you've explored the bow section, it's a 5-minute fin down towards the stern. When you reach the stern section, be sure to look up and see the impressive wheelhouse. Following one of the companionways on the starboard or port side will lead you to a doorway. It can be a tight squeeze if you're carrying stage cylinders, but swimming through here leads through to the wheelhouse. Down here too is the entrance to the engine room. Although the wheelhouse has been stripped of most of its identifying features, it's still a great exploration. Protected from the currents, there's 40 years of silt build-up in this section of the wreck, so be careful not to kick it up, or you may have problems finding your way out. Once you've arrived at the stern of the ship, and if you have time, you should drop down and see the rudder. Although the propeller has been long since salvaged, the rudder and the propeller mount are adorned with dead men's fingers and are worth an exploration. Despite the fact this wreck has been well salvaged, you can still find glass portholes on the hull. And among the dead men's fingers you can find Devonshire cup coral and other anemones. The tall mast lies on the deck, and you can follow it back to the shot line. And during your decompression stops, you can admire the moon jellyfish as they pass by. If you don't mind a bit of decompression, a dive on the wreck of the 3,178-ton steamship the Baron Carnegie is a must. With the seabed at 45 meters, this can be a dark dive. This wreck is, however, fairly open, and with a bright torch, it's easy to navigate your way around. What remains of the superstructure is adorned with dead men's fingers and plumos and enemies. To cover the entire wreck in one go will take a fairly long dive and consequently a great deal of decompression. However, using the available maps and being careful with your planning, you might want to explore the bow one dive and leave the stern for a second. Built and unfortunately sunk in the same year, 1954, the Gramsburgen lies in 11 metres of water just outside Fishguard Harbour. Although mostly flat, there are a few areas that offer great swim-throughs. Some of these swim-throughs can be a tight squeeze, but shouldn't pose a problem to the experienced diver. Although shallow, this is a great wreck to explore and offers many interesting pieces of wreckage, including a large pile of anchor chain. And don't forget to look under the hull plates and inside any holes you find. You never know what might be lurking inside. Conger eels are very inquisitive and will often show as much interest in you as you are showing in them. And beneath the conger's home you'll find shrimp and leopard-spotted gobies. This wreck is inhabited by numerous small fish. And when you've seen what you want to see of the wreck, you can drift off onto the reef or onto the sand surrounding the wreck. The masked crab usually spends the daylight hours hidden under the sand with just its two antennae visible. On this occasion, however, we found one wandering on the sand. Our last dive is on the north wall of Scomer Island. The island and its surroundings are part of a marine national park, and therefore a no-take zone for fishermen and divers alike. Being a marine national park has other advantages for the diver. You'll also find fragile species, like this large pink sea fan. Here you'll find lobster, edible crab and scallops in abundance. The walls are also covered in dead men's fingers, whose tiny tentacles snatch edible particles from the water. Up in the shallows you'll find kelp, its fronds swaying in the current. And of course your dive doesn't end until you've reached the surface. So on your ascent, look out for jellyfish, like this magnificent compass jellyfish. The wandering star is manoeuvrable enough to come alongside divers on the surface. And a quick shimmy up a ladder and onto the deck signifies the end of our dive.